My name is Carl. I'm 65. You know, at this age you kind of reach a plateau. Behind you is a long climb, ahead is a descent, and the air becomes so clear that you finally see things without embellishment. I've been running all my life. I thought I'd save up a year like money in the bank, but it turned out I was bankrupt, spending the only real currency on unnecessary things. You know, at 20 or 30 you act as if you've signed a contract for eternal life. You wake up and throw time away like cheap copper coins. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll go next year. I'll apologize someday. It's not just laziness, it's a dry, comfortable illusion. We all walk around with this feeling that we have an infinite credit limit of days in the bank. But at 65 you suddenly get a notification. The limit has been exhausted. You're not just poor, Carlo, you're bankrupt. And every second of your life is now worth its weight in gold. I always know that people die. I've gone to funerals, seeing the obituaries in the newspapers. But it was theoretical. What a complicated mathematical formula that doesn't apply to you. You know it with your mind, dollar plus B equals C dollar. But your heart is silent. But now it's not a formula. It's a physical feeling. It's like the cold steel of a knife pressed against your throat in a dark alley. You can't forget it. It makes you breathe more often. It makes the taste of morning coffee so sharp. It hurts. Before, I just drank coffee. Now I feel it because I know that this sip could be the penultimate. I often imagine that I'm standing on the very edge of a high cliff. Behind me is a big noisy party. There's music, people arguing about politics, buying new cars, getting offended over trifles. They're so far from the edge that they don't even believe it exists. And I can already see the bottom. I feel the wind from the abyss, and I want to turn to them, to all of you who are still there in the center of the hall, and shout, come to your senses. You're living a lie. You spend your life on the set, forgetting that the play is about to end. Every morning I start now with an inventory. I used to wake up and think about what I have to do. Now I wake up and think about what I have to feel. Every creak of a joint, every wrinkle of skin is not just a sign of aging. It's a reminder, Carl, you're not here for long. Stop playing hide and seek with reality. This sobering up is the cruelest but most beautiful gift of my age. It's only when you realize that you're mortal that you finally begin to be alive. Let me tell you about Michael. He was my best friend. You know, there are people like that, the solar plexus of any company. He was smarter than me, more charismatic, and, frankly, much more successful. Michael was a real shark. He didn't just make deals, he breathed them. Together we went from rented corners to offices where the furniture cost more than my first apartment. I was always a little jealous of his confidence in holding a steak by the throat. We were sitting in the same bar where every big move was celebrated. Michael had just closed the merger that had catapulted him into the major leagues. He leaned back in his chair, twirling a heavy glass of whiskey in his fingers, and looking at me with that trademark winner's look. Carl, listen, he said, 5 more years. I'll give this market one last fight. Push the number on the check to the ideal, and that's it. I promised all in Italy. I'll finally get those easels that are gathering dust in the garage. He had a plan written down to the smallest detail. He believed that he was buying his freedom. That evening we left the bar. It was cool outside. Michael was laughing, telling some other joke, and suddenly he was silent. He just stopped, grabbed his jacket near his heart, and began to sink onto the cold sidewalk right at the entrance to the establishment, where a minute ago we had drunk to his success. A massive heart attack. He was 42. He didn't even have time to get to his car, let alone to Italy. His easels were left in the garage, wrapped in plastic. This whole grandiose 5-year plan turned into nothing on the dirty tiles at the bar, standing over his grave. I felt not only sadness, but also rage. Michael's tragedy was not death. Everyone dies. The tragedy was that he turned his life into a waiting room. He treated each day as if it were just a cheap train ticket to a better future. He traded his real hour for an illusion that burst like a soap bubble. When I look at you now, I see Michael. You say the same things to yourself. I'll get a promotion. The kids will grow up tomorrow. But there is no tomorrow in life. There is only this moment at the bar while you are still breathing. A week after Michael fell at the bar, I had to go to his office. I had to help his wife, Elena, gather his personal belongings. You know, I expected to see mourning there, silence, people crying in the hallways. But no, life there went on as before. Phones were ringing, the coffee machine was buzzing, someone was arguing about quarterly reports. Michael's death was just an unfortunate delay in the schedule for this building, nothing more. I sat in his chair, the same one where 3 days ago he had drawn me diagrams of his future life. On the table was his diary. Meetings were scheduled for 6 months in advance. 6 months of things that he considered urgent and vitally important. His mailbox was clogged with hundreds of letters marked attention and priority. I looked at that flashing screen and realized, for Michael, these emails were a way of life, and now they were just digital noise. The world didn't stop. Not a single client closed their firm to complain. And here's the cruelest part. The company replaced Michael within 2 weeks. His name on the door was removed so quickly that the paint hadn't even had time to fade under the old sign. A new guy, younger, more energetic, with the same fire in his eyes and the same illusion of his own irreplaceability, was already sitting in his place, drinking coffee from the same mug. A year later, Michael's clients couldn't even remember his last name. The man who worked 70 hours a week, who sacrificed dinner with his family for deadlines, was erased from corporate memory faster than software updates. I left that office with a box of his speeches, a couple of photos, some silly best manager statuette, and a spare tie. It was all that was left of 30 years of career growth. That's when I realized we're selling our lives to build other people's castles. We worship at the altar of our profession, but that altar will never embrace you back. Your position is just a transaction. Your contribution is just a number. If you fail today, your job will be posted on LinkedIn before your obituary is even published. I used to be proud of my 200 square meter apartment, large, near the very center, with panoramic windows through which the city seemed like my toy. I spent years furnishing it with the right speeches, expensive Italian furniture, the latest technology, a dressing room filled with suits that I wore once a year. I thought that this one purchase was a brick in my fortress of success. But now, sitting here at 65, I look at all this and see not success. I see a trap. Do you know what we waste our lives on? We buy things we don't need, with money we don't have or that we got at the cost of our own health, to impress people we don't even like. I look at this designer sofa and remember how many Saturdays I spent in the office to pay for it. The couch was in the living room, and I was sitting in meetings. I was trading my precious hours for scraps of fabric and wood. That's crazy, isn't it? I've been to a lot of funerals over the years, and I'll tell you one thing. I've never seen a speech trailer following a hearse. You can't even take your favorite pen with you. When I'm gone, my kids will hire strangers to come to this big apartment. You know what they'll do? They'll just throw 90% of my prestigious speeches in the nearest dumpster. The other 10% will be sold on some online marketplace for next to nothing. All that your antiques, your gadgets, your collections is just future trash. Period. Right now, I'm fine with one comfy chair, a bed, and a picture of my family on the nightstand. The rest is just noise. Why did I work 60 hours a week to pay off the car that was just sitting in traffic for most of the hour? We work until we're exhausted, miss out on watching our children grow up, lose touch with our wives, all just to surround ourselves with beautiful objects in an empty big apartment. Don't wait until you're 65 to understand. People create comfort, not square footage. Don't buy into this lie. I remember that evening in 1979, a big banquet at City Hall, black tie dress code. I was announced as Businessman of the Year. I walked up to the podium to thunderous applause, and at that moment, I felt like a real winner. I felt like I had finally won the game. I held this heavy piece of polished glass in my hands, and it seemed to me that it glowed with my importance. I was on top of the world, or so I was told. Round midnight, I returned to my large apartment. I unlocked the door with my key and was met with absolute, deafening silence. No light in the hallway. Eleanor was already asleep. The children were too. I went into the kitchen, without even taking off my jacket, and placed this trophy on the table next to an empty coffee cup. I poured myself a shot of whiskey and just sat in the dark, watching the street lights bounce off that glass. The applause died down. The people who had shaken my hand an hour ago had forgotten I existed. They only cared about what I could do for their business the next day. I sat there and suddenly felt sick. To win this award, I had missed my son's final game. I hadn't had dinner with my family for months. I even forgot our anniversary because I was closing those damn mergers. I traded warm hugs and heartfelt conversations for this cold thing. My big apartment had many rooms, but that night it felt like a tiny solitary confinement cell. I realized the people who really loved me were just behind the wall, outside the bedroom, and I was farther away from them than ever. I had won a trophy, but I had forfeited the right to be a part of their lives. Now, after all these years, do you know where this Businessman of the Year is? He's lying next to a box in the pantry, under old newspapers and an old man. I'm not even sure if he broke during the last move, but you know what didn't break? The memory of my wife's sad eyes when I said in line, "Look, honey, I can't make it today. I have a very important meeting." Trophies don't keep you warm at night. A career doesn't hold your hand. It's just a transaction where you sell the most expensive thing for shiny little things. I spent most of my life worshiping at the altar of career. I thought my job title was who I was. Carl is a successful manager. Carl is a problem solver. We cling to our statuses as if they were ingrained in our skin. But now at 65, I see it differently. My career was not my inheritance. It was simply a long, exhausting purchase and sale transaction. I was selling hours of my life, the very hours that will never, for any money, get back to build someone else's castle. Here's the cruel truth we all hide from behind schedules and deadlines. If you or I were to drop dead right now, your job wouldn't be empty for long. Your job posting will be online before your family has even picked out flowers for your funeral. The company will send out a deepest condolences in a general email, and the next morning the new employee will be changing the password on your computer. Your career won't love you back. It won't hold your hand when the lights go out. I look at the young guys in our business center. They run around with such serious faces, as if they're saving the planet, not just increasing shareholder returns by 2%. I want to stop them and ask, "Boy, what are you fighting for? For a bonus? For a new door sign? You think you're an indispensable cog in a great mechanism, but the mechanism doesn't care about the cogs, it just changes them when they wear out. You're giving up your best years, your energy, your eyesight, and your peace of mind for the illusion of importance. A true legacy is not your net worth or your list of achievements on LinkedIn. Your legacy is how you made the people around you feel. It's your children who remember not your awards, but whether you were there when they fell off their bike. I spent thousands of hours on people who forgot my name the day after I retired, and I took those hours away from people who still remember my voice. It was the worst business I've ever done. Don't make that mistake again. Don't build someone else's castle at the cost of your own soul." At 65, I realized a strange thing. The only thing you really have at the end is what you give away. Not what you put in a safe, not what you invested at interest, but what you gave away just like that. The love you gave, the time you set aside for someone, the support you gave to a stranger. This is the only currency that does not depreciate and does not disappear when you close the door to your big apartment. I sit in this chair, and I do not scroll through my successful contracts in my head. I do not remember how cleverly I bypassed my competitors in the 90s. My internal memory shows me a completely different movie. I see Sunday mornings when Eleanor and I just drank tea and did not rush anywhere. I remember my son, when he was 4, bursting into laughter as I tried to put together his construction set on the living room floor again. I remember the day I helped a random guy push his stalled car in the middle of a snowy highway. That's my real capital. I used to think that providing for my son was about buying him the best education, a new phone, or a car for adulthood. I was wrong. Providing is about being there when he's scared. It's about knowing the name of his favorite song, not just the amount of his monthly expenses. Now I would give all my bonuses for 1 hour of that sincere, childish laughter from my son, whom I once brushed aside because I needed to focus on the report. It turns out that no one needs reports, and that laughter is what keeps me afloat today. Real wealth is not about zeros in the account. Real wealth is a collection of moments that still warm your chest. It's connections with people. When you die, you don't wonder about your stock portfolio. You look for the faces of those who loved you. Everything else is an illusion, smoke, a bubble. If there's nothing in your life but money, you're the poorest person I know. I spent most of my life in an invisible prison. I was afraid to take a step outside the protocol. What will my colleagues say? How will I look in front of my partners? Will the neighbors think I'm crazy? My aim was my strictest guard. I gave up on dreams, didn't start strange but interesting projects, didn't say what I really thought, in order to maintain this cardboard facade of a serious and successful person. And now I'll tell you a secret that liberates better than any psychoanalysis. No one will be surprised by you. In general, everyone you meet is too busy with their acne, their loans, and their own head. You are the main character only in your own head. To the rest of the world, you are just background noise, an episodic character who has flashed by and disappeared. We spend years trying to maintain our reputations in the eyes of people who forget about us 5 minutes after we talk. At 65, I realized that looking like a fool is a privilege. Not picking up the phone when you don't want to talk, walking out of a boring party, starting to learn a foreign language even if your pronunciation is terrible, that's true freedom. My ego wouldn't let me admit my feelings or ask for help before. Today, I do it with a smile. Do you know why? Because other people's opinions will rot in the ground with them. They have no physical weight. So why let them paralyze your life? I want to free you from this burden right now. Stop waiting for approval. Those who judge you are usually just jealous of your courage to be yourself. Kill your ego before it kills your spark. Take risks, write books no one will read, dance like no one is watching because, as we've already discovered, no one will be surprised. The only person you have to answer to at the end of the journey is yourself. There's an old Stoic technique that has turned my life upside down. When you're 65, it becomes not just an exercise, but your breathing. The point is simple. Whatever you do, remind yourself that one day you'll be doing it for the last time. It sounds gloomy, but it's actually the brightest thought I know. It strips away all the dull routine from life and leaves only the pure essence. One day you'll hold your son for the last time and you won't know it's the same time. One day you'll kiss your wife for the last time before bed. One day you'll drink coffee for the last time on the balcony of your big apartment, watching the sun set over the horizon. We never know when that finale will come. Maybe in 10 years, maybe tonight. And if you hold that thought in your head, you just physically can't treat the moment with contempt. Now, when I hug my loved ones, I hold them longer. I don't just mechanically swallow dinner, huddled in front of the TV. I feel the taste of the food, the aroma of the wine, the warmth of the candle on the table. The practice of one last time forces you to be here 100%. You stop being a tourist in your own life, who only clicks a camera, not looking at the landscape. You finally become a part of this landscape. Most people live on autopilot. They pass life through the sieve of their plans for the future. And now I enjoy the very process of how the sand falls through my fingers. Every morning, when I wake up and feel it under my feet, it's a victory. A heartfelt conversation with my son, even about some nonsense, is a treasure. Because I know, somewhere out there, in a calendar that I can't see, there's already a cross on my last day. And this knowledge makes me the richest man in the world. Look at me. I'm 65. My body is not so obedient anymore. My eyes sometimes fail me, and my memory plays hide and seek. But you have a golden ticket in your hands now. You have youth, you have health, you have something that I will never be able to buy for any money in the world. And what are you spending it on? On endlessly scrolling through the tape on your phone. On lulling yourself to sleep with illusions of security. You are simply eating away at your greatest asset without even noticing it. Come to your senses. Lift your head from the screens. Go outside. Feel the wind on your face. Look at this sky, it's different every day, and you can't see it. Call your mother while she can still answer. Forgive that old enemy. Not because he's right, but because you're too poor for an hour to lug around the heavy, dirty baggage of hate. You just don't have room for that junk. Most people never really live. They just are. They're careful. They try to be comfortable. They hide in their big apartments and wait for the perfect moment. And then they just expire. The expiration date is up. Don't be like Michael. Don't wait for a 5-year deal. Don't wait for retirement. Don't wait for permission to be happy. Eat the best food now. Buy a ticket to the city of your dreams today. Say I love you first. Do you hear that sound? It's not just time on the wall. It's the sound of your life slipping away like sand through your fingers. Every heartbeat is -1. Every breath is one step closer to the end. Don't let your life end in a void. Fill it with meaning, laughter, risk, and love. I'm tired of talking. I'm going to live the minutes I have left. And you? What will you do if I shut up now?